that is started, just Maggie to let you know, this is being recorded so that anyone who's not here won't miss out. But otherwise, without further ado, I'm Molly Gladwin. I'm Education Manager at the States Greph, and this is my colleague Heidi Whitehead, who is one of our Education and Outreach Officers. And we're absolutely delighted that you are here today at the launch of Mark My Words, which is being launched in partnership with the Jersey Oracy Network. So we're very fortunate to still have Andrew Willis on board leading the way, and he'll be saying a few words at the end as well to wrap up. But it is a bit of a joint venture to try and spread the word of Oracy in Jersey and provide as many opportunities for our young people as possible. So Mark My Words, thank you all. I really, really appreciate the input that you gave, and we're very excited to have an opportunity, a really fantastic opportunity for our young people, but also, as it has been co-created with yourselves, hopefully something that is really easily implementable. You're able to pick it up easily, but also to provide support so that there are those resources that you can have access to so that it's successful. So in terms of today, as I've mentioned to those of you who are here a bit early, we will be finished by 15:15. However, we will stay on if we have a flurry of questions. We will run over. Please don't feel any pressure to stay. If you have to run off, that's fine. We will, as I say, share the recording so that you do have all of that to hand. Before we start, obviously you can see here the resources that are available. We will go through these. I just want to stress at this point that all resources and suggested teaching sequences are optional. We have created them, put a lot of time and love into them, but they are if you need extra support, or if you maybe have cover teachers, or you're not sure where to start. So they've also been created particularly in mind for those schools who aren't currently Voice 21 schools. So please don't think that anything we are kind of showing you or going through at that point is mandatory. It is very much optional. And a reminder that whenever you would like to deliver this, you are able to. So whether that's in a roll-up at the end of the academic year, or whether it's in the first 3 weeks in September, the key date is the final on the 26th of September. So just please bear that in mind. We will go through everything else that's on the slides, but as I said, just a few notices before we begin. So Heidi.
Okay, so the overall aim of the competition, there's a bit of alliteration here, which I'm sure the English teachers will all fully support. So 3 C's of crafting, communicating and critiquing a proposal for change. So the idea is we do want an explicitly taught unit. Now, for some schools, that will mean more than others. If you're Voice 21 schools, this will be revisiting skills, extending them a little bit. Some of you may feel you're starting a little bit more from scratch, but I think all English departments teach these skills. So certainly this idea of crafting, putting together a piece of transactional writing, for example, with all those juicy rhetorical devices that we like, a lovely structure, for example, the hook, the diagnosis, the vision, the plan, the conclusion. That's the crafting element. And then we've obviously got the communication, in other words, the public speaking element, the presenting, using your voice, using your face, using your physicality, your movement, your gestures, all those things that, again, may well be being revisited and the students being reminded about those. And then an additional element, I think, is the critiquing. In other words, a bit of critical thinking whereby there's a bit of revisiting and thinking about the speech, posing questions, answering questions, but I'll speak a bit more about that later. Very importantly, we are building on the Speak Up, Speak Out competition. If you were involved in that, or if primary schools were involved in that, or your students were involved in that, or certainly any Oracy skills that you've been using beforehand, but building on that and setting it within a political context this time. So that's the change, that's the difference this time. So this idea that actually, rather than just a speech about anything, this will be a proposal for change, something that they want changed or improved within an island context. And that links in nicely, of course, to developing their knowledge and understanding of Jersey's political system and keeping links with politicians. The final takes place in the States Chamber in front of politicians. So therefore, there's this idea of the importance of public speaking in generating change. So a little bit of a closer look at some of that. Okay, so we've got these 3 skill strands. Like I say, they can be called other things. I just like 3 C's. So the crafting of the speech, which again, as I said, is all those, very careful thinking about what makes a speech, what rhetorical devices can be used, how should it be planned and structured to have maximum effect, what arguments can go into that speech, for example, and then the presentation of that speech through all the various voice, face, body. There are 3 strands or 3 themes, if you like. Now, those came from you. So I know Molly did a huge amount of preparatory work, going out to schools, talking to teachers, and we were basically asking, what is it that you're perhaps currently studying with year 7 going into year 8 that could then generate some really interesting themes, issues, topics? So conflict, sustainability, social responsibility came up as these 3 main strands. Okay, so within that, those are really, really broad. And within that, to be quite honest, schools can either choose, you as teachers can choose to just focus on one with your students because that's relevant to you. Or maybe you might even think, right, even within that theme, I've got a really specific topic or question that I want all of them to look at. And I'm going to use a stimulus and they can all follow that through and then we can directly compare speeches. Absolutely, that bit is over to you. We also want to make the point that you can discuss things outside the island. It is about change within a local context, but taking conflict, for example, it could be that you've been looking at national or international conflicts, and you're thinking, how can I tie that into the island? Or maybe it's, should Jersey increase their overseas aid budget to help with those conflicts? So it doesn't have to be all absolutely from start to finish based on Jersey. You can bring in other things. So those are the 3 themes. As I said, the other part about it is going to be the critiquing of the speech at the end. This to us is quite important because this is quite a sophisticated skill. So the idea is that people are going to be, or your students are going to be as much developing skills as listeners, as an audience, as they are as speakers. So listening actively to the speeches that they hear from their peers, summarizing effectively and using that to think about and plan really high quality questions that sort of build on an argument or try to clarify or challenge or probe an argument. And then, of course, the speaker has to then respond on the spot. So almost what we call in the States Chamber questions without notice, and spontaneously answer to be able to really clarify something about their speech. So that is a little bit of a notch up and quite an effective challenge. Now, once this is the must bit, hopefully all of year 8 must engage with this, hopefully, and all of them come up with some form of speech that they've crafted and communicated. You then need to pick some finalists to go to the competition. Again, how you do that is entirely up to you. We've suggested there that maybe you could have class competitions. So each English class with their teacher has a competition. They then go forward to a year group final in front of the year group. And then that finalist is selected to go forward and be the speaker. We would also love to have a little team of students from each school. So perhaps the runners up, that the class winners could come to a maximum of a team of 6 all together to the chamber. So you've got a little team who are supporting their speaker, which is really nice, but also they're forming a team to listen to the other speeches, discuss questions, draft them, pose them, so that then the speakers can give those answers on the spot.
Yeah, I'd also just like to, for those of you who may not have or be a Voice 21 school or have many students who have been through that, we really have noticed this with our year 5 visits to our primary visits to the States Chamber with students in year 5. Samurai recently, it was absolutely fantastic. We had year 5 students sitting there making notes and responding organically as part of their debate in the States Chamber. So hopefully, as we all know, these aren't new skills they're being taught. It is revisiting and taking them to the next level. But I think that we're seeing certainly through the cohorts that we get in for that debate, these skills are there and they're becoming more prevalent with the introduction of Voice 21.
Absolutely, absolutely. So at the end of all of that, when they come into the States Chamber, the finalists and their little team of supporters, there will obviously be an overall winner. The judges will be looking at the very skills we just talked about, and Molly's going to talk about that in more detail, how the speech was crafted and communicated and how it was critiqued. And then there will be an individual trophy for the speaker who wins, and also a cash prize for the school. And the school can get points from their speaker, but also from the questions that they craft and pose to other schools.
Absolutely. So thinking a little bit more about that success criteria, as Heidi's mentioned, the overall winner will be decided by those three things: the content delivery and critical thinking and the critiquing. However, our judges will be marking against those three criteria using the Oracy framework. Now, those of you who are Voice 21 schools will be familiar with this. I've just made it slightly bigger for those of you who maybe have never seen it before and wonder what on earth that is. But for example, with the kind of crafting of the speech, obviously we'll be thinking therefore a little bit more about the cognitive strand. So our judges will be asked to mark and assess the speeches using those cognitive strand elements. Then thinking about how did they communicate it, what was their physicality like, how did they work with others in terms of eye contact and gestures and all of those different things. So the success criteria will be based on the Oracy framework, which is freely available online for those of you who aren't yet enrolled in Voice 21. However, we will also send this PowerPoint round so you can have a look at what the judging will be. And as Heidi said, in the final in the States Chamber, students will be judged on their final speech, but then the quality of their questions and the quality of those responses. So it really is those different strands. You might think, oh, it's a public speaking competition. How will they be marked on working with others, for example? There is that element. So this is what we'll be using for judging. We are hoping that the Education Minister, Chair of Children Education Home Affairs Scrutiny Panel and the Chief Minister will be our judges. It is obviously subject to diaries, but that is the plan at the minute. They're really, really supportive. So it's quite a big ticket final, which is really exciting. So hopefully that is also motivation. So in terms of key dates and kind of next steps, we do have, I will issue another reminder. You can deliver this whenever you want to. I know that I think Holly, we spoke at Ballet that roll up might be a good time. I think Nikki, we also mentioned that that might work for Grainville too. You can do this at whatever point suits you between now and September. We've asked that you advise us of your finalists as late as possible, as close as possible to that Friday, to give you enough time to give you those 3 weeks in September. Deadline for sign-ups is the 23rd of May, which is also the Jersey Oracy Festival, so easily memorable, hopefully. And in terms of what that final will include on the day, on the Friday, the 26th of September, it will be pretty much a kind of 9:30 till 1 o'clock event. We want students to be able to have the chance to come in, refresh their memory of what the States Chamber looks like from that trip in year 5 that they all did, give them an overview of all the tech, etc., and a run through of how things will work before the judges arrive. They will also have the opportunity to vote on each other's proposals. That won't contribute to the marks, but there will be a little bit of fun whilst the judges are going outside to deliberate, and we're delighted that Andrew will also be hosting and comparing that. A little note about the 26th of September, we're requesting that staff bring 2 staff maximum. We are also hoping to invite some parents along, so thinking about 6 students, 2 school members of staff each. So in terms of resources, now I'm just going to stop sharing the PowerPoint for a moment, and then I'm just going to navigate to a web page, which I'll also drop into the chat whilst Heidi talks about that for now. Sorry.
Just while Molly's doing that, just a note again on resources. I'm repeating what she said. We have provided quite a lot of resources. Now, this is either exciting news if you love a really good PowerPoint or some beautiful worksheets, but we've also got YouTube clips, all sorts of things. But again, if you are very established in what you teach on Oracy skills, for example, this may be something that you dip in and out of. So it might be that you use one of these resources, some of these resources, all of these resources. What I would say is don't use none of them, because I think what we think will particularly work well is our exemplar videos, which I think we're able to show you. So when we click on this button, okay, this will show
Ladies, think you've got on mute.
Sorry about that.
Thank you. I'll start right from the beginning. Kidding. Right, this is our video resource page. Okay, I don't know how much you missed there, but you don't need my blah blah again. So there are 3 videos that actually, if you use, and I'll talk about this in a minute, the teacher's PowerPoint, the slideshow that we've created, these are embedded on that PowerPoint and part of a sequence, or you can bin the PowerPoint. Why would you? And you can just use these in isolation separately. So they're a lovely, beautiful introduction from Molly. And what's nice about this is it's in the States Chamber. So it shows the students the States Chamber, where some of them might end up as finalists, and really hopefully engages them and excites them about the competition and puts in context, why are we doing this? There's then an exemplar speech. Now, I know, again, you as teachers will have at your fingertips probably lots of examples of great speeches. We started to look and thought, do we get a speech by a 12-year-old? Do we find a speech that's in the UK Youth Parliament? Do we? And we started looking, and nothing quite did what we wanted to do. So we thought, boom, let's do our own speech. And the point of that was, not only is the speech about the importance of oracy, why oracy, in our humble opinion, and Andrew's, I'm sure, and all of you, should be compulsory, but it's also purposely designed to stuff in quite a few of those rhetorical devices that then the children can spot. So hopefully you will find that a really useful teaching tool, whether you watch it once or a few times, as recommended, to bring out all the different things. And then the third video I think is hopefully really useful, which is examples of questions being asked. You've got an example of a probe, a challenge, a build, and the other one, clarify. And you've also got responses. And of course, in responses from students, we're looking for a direct, relevant response that's clear and comprehensive in terms of what the question's asked. So again, there's an example there. But other resources that you will find, if my glamorous assistant goes back to the page, basically where you see the button teacher guidance, the teacher guidance is basically a plan. So if you want to, it'll map out almost like what a taught unit might look like, in terms of giving you a directive of roughly 3 weeks, crafting, communicating, critiquing. And that teacher guide has got links to, you would use this resource, now this worksheet, this relates to these slides on the PowerPoint. So that's a good starting point. Then you can see it's got the teaching slides, so that is the PowerPoint, and that's got all sorts of hopefully really useful things. Yes, the embedded videos, but also reminders about what the rhetorical devices are, for example, what the physical skills are, voice, face, body. So if you were listening earlier thinking, oh my gosh, all these things I've got to remind the students about, I'll have to delve around and find a PowerPoint, have a look at this one first. That and the teaching resources, which are the worksheets by any other name, okay, are on Word and PowerPoint format. So download them, and then you can adapt them as much as you want. You could look at it and think, doesn't quite do what I want, or I'll use that one and not that one, or I'll use half of this. Lovely jubbly. The local context research, what a beauty. Okay, so in this particular section, again, to help you and your students, you have the 3 themes listed separately. You have various YouTube clips of states meetings, newspaper articles, links to various propositions and debates, all sorts of things that then the students can use. So we hope that this will provide a really, really useful resource that is all there on the States Assembly website under secondary resources, and Molly has provided a link to that. Use as much or as little as you want.
Absolutely. I'm just going to go back to presenting the slides for just a moment, and whilst they are loading, I would just like to reiterate that obviously if you're a Voice 21 school, the exchange is available too. We have largely adapted many resources from there for the schools that aren't, so please find that on there.
Absolutely.
So in terms of next steps, as I said, Friday the 23rd of May is your deadline to sign up to fill that form in. It is the Jersey Oracy Festival. I'll send this round. The sign up form is also on that webpage that I put into the chat. And I think before we go to questions, Andrew, is there anything else you would like to share?
Firstly, to say, fabulous, you two. Thank you so much. It looks an absolutely brilliant piece of work that you've put together there, really comprehensive and supportive for schools. The second thing is just to reiterate what you've said, but from my point of view, this is about progression. And when Molly and I started talking about this secondary opportunity, it was about giving progression for our students. So they have the States Assembly visit in year 5. They've got the speak up, speak out opportunity when they're creating a speech and presenting it to a large audience in year 6. And now this a year 8 opportunity where they're not only creating the speech, but they're also crafting questions and answering questions about it. So working at a deeper level. It's a great progression, and if you think about the experience of our students moving through their schools, through primary and through into secondary, it's a great opportunity this to extend and really deepen their use of RSE and their skills. So it fits right into the picture across the island. You know, the Jersey RSE network, just to say for schools who aren't Voice 21 schools, the idea of it is to provide an umbrella organisation, kind of something to hold us all together, whether we're Voice 21 schools or not is immaterial. The point is, good RSE is good for everybody. It's particularly good for students who don't get as much support from home or don't have that experience at home. And we know that if we're looking at things through an equity lens, teaching RSE explicitly will really empower those children and make it much more likely that social mobility will take place. So this is all part of a much bigger movement. It looks like a great event that I'm really excited and looking forward to. And thank you again to Molly and Heidi for it.
Thank you very much. As I said, please do feel free to use the next 5-6 minutes or so to ask any questions you might have. We will stay online, and I will keep just recording to make sure that those responses are captured. But if you do need to dash off, please do. And if you think of something in the next week, 2 weeks, please just send an email. I'll also put that in a follow-up, which I'll send around tomorrow. So yes, one thing I did forget, sorry, Pip at the start, was just to introduce Pip. Pip Oliver is on our call. Pip is currently teaching at the Kennervay, but I'm delighted to say is joining our team in September as another officer. So she will be part of the team delivering this, and she'll be another friendly face you'll see in September. So welcome, Pip. We can't wait to have you join us. I can see that Maggie and I think that might be Jess are typing, so I will just hold on.
Yes, thank you very much for coming, everybody.
Absolutely. Oh, thank you. Thanks, Jess. Appreciate it. Hopefully everyone will enjoy it. As I said, if you have any questions, just let us know. We'll stay on the call. I think Maggie might.
And please do use the link to look at the website. Like I say, we don't mind if you don't use the resources, but do have a look at what's there first, because it'd be a shame to realise afterwards that there was actually quite a lot of stuff there that you could have used. But it really doesn't matter how much you do or don't use, but just have a good scan and see if there's anything that's useful.
Absolutely. It really can sit alongside pre-existing schemes, so hopefully it is to bolster. Yes, Maggie, absolutely. Students can use a taught. Yes, please do. So that's conflict. You might be studying Warhorse, private peaceful, anything like that. Absolutely, please use that as the stimulus. All we ask for is that there is a kind of a proposal for change in Jersey. So this sets the bigger picture. How is it relevant to us? Hopefully that answers your question. But absolutely, we really want you to sit alongside whatever you're doing.
In the PowerPoint, there are some slides that give some quite specific ideas if people are really not sure about things that could be sort of proposals for Jersey that hopefully are age appropriate as well, in terms of course, they're age appropriate, but in terms of what might interest year 8. So that, again, there's all sorts of ideas and suggestions, but we do feel the themes are broad enough that you can use whatever you're currently studying and find an issue or a topic within that.
Thank you, Catherine. Thank you, Maggie. Hopefully that was good. Teaching time, we're suggesting, Nikki, about 3 weeks. Appreciate that if it's part of a wider scheme of work, 3 weeks really about with a week of writing speeches. That is the element that we all do, transactional writing. We're all familiar with that in English departments. I'd really say that the biggie was the kind of 2 weeks, a week on the skills of communicating, and then a week on questions and kind of answering. About 3 weeks. If it is in September and you might lose a few lessons because of insets, Battle of Britain, etc., that's fine, but roughly 3 weeks. As I say, if it's part of obviously a broader scheme of learning, then then the first week might be quicker than that and speedier.
Yeah, and it depends on the background of your students as to how much of this they've done before and how much you're revisiting skills or feeling like you're teaching from scratch. You know, the PowerPoint resources we provided are almost there in case you're almost teaching from scratch. So a lot of those you wouldn't necessarily need to use or use them all or revisit. You know, I think there's points where the speech is watched several times to first of all look at crafting, then look at communicating, then look at questioning. You might be able to do that all in one go. Watch the speech once and think, right, what did you think about the way the speech was crafted, the way that it was presented? So schools will go at their own pace, depending on the students that they're teaching and the background they've had.
And that might be true if you're in a streamed environment as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
It might take slightly longer, or you might miss bits depending on your students. But yes, wonderful. If anyone else has any questions, please just pop them in the chat. Otherwise, please do email us